There's a specific kind of silence that comes after years of noise. Not the silence of an empty room, but the silence of a phone you stopped checking, of group chats you left unread, of birthdays that pass without a single message, and you realize you don't miss hearing from anyone at all. You didn't plan this. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to burn every bridge in your life. It happened slowly, quietly, like watching a friendship fade in real time, but being too tired to fight for it anymore. One unanswered text at a time, one declined invitation after another, one conversation where you realized you were doing all the talking, all the asking, all the caring, until eventually you stopped pretending, stopped explaining, stopped showing up for people who never showed up for you. Maybe you recognize this feeling. Maybe you are this person. The cold one, the one who changed, the one who cut everyone off, the one people whisper about at gatherings you're no longer invited to. They talk about what happened to you, why you're so different now, why you don't answer anymore. But here's what they don't see. You were already alone long before you left. You were already sitting in rooms full of people feeling invisible. Already having conversations where nobody asked how you were really doing. Already celebrating birthdays surrounded by people who couldn't name one real thing about you. The physical distance didn't create the loneliness. It just stopped pretending the loneliness wasn't already there. This is the psychology of people who cut everyone off, and it's not what you think. The slow realization. You look at your phone and realize you haven't texted anyone in weeks, maybe months. No plans, no catch-ups, no meaningless small talk about weather or work or weekend activities. Just you, your routine, and this strange sense of relief you didn't expect to feel. When someone does reach out and asks if you want to hang out, "I'm busy" used to be an excuse. Now it's a boundary. The difference is, you're not apologizing anymore. You're not scrambling to explain why you can't make it. You're just unavailable. And somehow, that feels right. This didn't happen overnight. You didn't wake up heartless. You woke up after years of being the friend who always showed up, who drove hours for someone's crisis at 2 a.m., who remembered birthdays and asked how people were doing and actually listened to the answer, who gave advice and lent money and stayed on the phone until they felt better. You were the reliable one, the one people called when they needed something. The shoulder to cry on, the problem solver, the listener. And then one day, you needed something. You had your own crisis, your own breaking point, your own 3 a.m. moment when you couldn't hold it together anymore, and you reached out. You asked for help. You needed someone to show up the way you'd always shown up for them. Silence. Maybe one person sent a "sorry to hear that" text. Maybe someone said they'd call you back and never did. Maybe they were all just really busy right now. Maybe they sent you a thinking of you emoji and moved on with their day. It wasn't that no one came, it's that you realized in that moment how alone you'd always been. You thought the friendship was mutual. You thought someone was keeping track the way you were. You thought you mattered to them the way they mattered to you. You were wrong, and that realization changed everything. The equation changes. That's when every interaction became different. You started doing math you didn't want to do. Every text, every invitation, every conversation became a cost-benefit analysis. How much energy does this take? What am I actually getting back? Is this person here for me, or just here for what I can do for them? The math stopped making sense. You were pouring from an empty cup into cups that were never empty to begin with. They just wanted more, they always wanted more, and you kept giving because that's what you did. That's who you were, the giver, the helper, the one who made everyone else feel seen. So you stopped pouring, not dramatically, just quietly. You stopped texting first, stopped suggesting plans, stopped checking in on people who never checked in on you, and you waited to see what would happen. Most of the time, nothing happened. The friendship just ended. No confrontation. No final conversation, just silence where there used to be noise. And that told you everything you needed to know. You weren't being missed. You were being used. And the moment you stopped being useful, you stopped being remembered. People noticed eventually. Of course they noticed. When you stop being available, when you stop answering within minutes, when you decline every invitation until the invitations stop coming, people notice. They just don't notice why. You've changed, they say. You're so cold now. What happened to you? They say it like an accusation, like you owe them the version of yourself that was slowly dying from giving too much. They want the old you back, the one who said yes to everything, who made time for everyone, who put everyone else first. They don't realize the old you couldn't survive anymore. If you're starting to see yourself in this story, if you're realizing you're not alone in feeling this way, subscribe to Mindseed. We explore the psychology behind these painful patterns, helping you understand why you feel what you feel. Because sometimes just knowing you're not broken is the first step to healing. Your nervous system learned. Here's what actually happened. Your nervous system figured something out before your conscious mind did. It learned a pattern, a painful, repetitive pattern. Every time you let someone in, every time you trusted, every time you showed up with your whole heart, eventually you'd end up alone with the pieces. The friend who disappeared when you got depressed, the partner who left when you stopped being easy, the family who was there for holidays, but nowhere when you actually needed family. Your brain started seeing the ending in every beginning. You'd meet someone new, start building a connection, and somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice would ask, how long until this one leaves too? It wasn't cynicism, it was data. Your nervous system was keeping score, and the score was devastating. So you started controlling the one variable you could control, the exit. If everyone leaves eventually, you'd leave first. You'd cut them off before they could cut you off. Abandonment hurts less when you're the one who initiates it. At least this way, you saw it coming. People call it self-sabotage. You call it self-preservation. It's not dramatic when you do it. There's no big fight, no final confrontation where you tell them everything they did wrong. It's quieter than that. It's not answering texts for days that turn into weeks, that turn into months. It's declining invitations until your absence becomes normal and they stop asking. It's moving to a new city and not telling anyone until you're already gone. It's deleting social media without an announcement, without a goodbye, without giving anyone a chance to ask you to stay. It's the slow fade, or sometimes it's the hard cut. Either way, you're gone. And the strange part, it doesn't hurt like you thought it would. The absence that feels like relief. You run into someone you used to be close with. They ask how you've been. You say, good, you? Small talk, surface pleasantries. Inside you're thinking, we were never really friends, we just knew each other's names. You occupied the same space, but never the same world. They never saw you, not really. You just performed a version of yourself you thought they wanted, and when that version got too tired to perform anymore, there was nothing left. The truth nobody tells you. You were already alone in rooms full of people. Being physically alone just made the feeling match the reality. Some people think you hate them now. The reality is worse than that. You're indifferent. Hate requires energy. It requires caring enough to hold on to the anger. You're past that. You're not running from them anymore. You're just done. They want closure. They want the conversation where you explain what happened, where you tell them what they did wrong, where you give them a chance to apologize or argue or fix it. But closure would require explaining yourself to people who never listened. Closure would mean reopening wounds that finally stopped bleeding. So you give them nothing. Let them write whatever story they need to write about you. You're not reading it. Here's the part that surprises you most. It doesn't hurt like you thought it would. The solo holidays. The birthday that passes with no messages. The emergency where you handle it yourself because there's no one to call. You expected it to feel devastating. Instead, it just feels quiet. and quiet became your favorite sound. The childhood blueprint. This pattern didn't start in adulthood. Somewhere back in childhood, you learned that people leave, or people hurt, or love comes with conditions you could never quite meet. Maybe a parent who was there physically but gone emotionally. Maybe a home where affection felt earned, not given. Maybe you were the kid who learned to handle everything alone because asking for help meant hearing "not now" or "figure it out yourself," or worse, nothing at all. Maybe you watched a parent walk out. Maybe you experienced divorce, not as a sad ending but as proof that people don't stay no matter what they promise. Maybe you were the child of parents who stayed but shouldn't have, who filled the house with silence or screaming, teaching you that connection doesn't equal safety. Or maybe it was subtler than that. Maybe your emotional needs just weren't convenient. You'd come home from school upset about something, and the response was, "Don't be so sensitive," or "Other kids have it worse," or just a distracted, "That's nice, honey," while they scrolled their phone. You learned that your feelings were burdens, that needing emotional support was asking too much, that crying made people uncomfortable, that asking for help came with sighs and eye rolls, that celebrating achievements too enthusiastically annoyed people, or made siblings jealous, or reminded parents of their own failures. Those early experiences didn't just hurt you, they taught you. Your brain, still developing, still trying to make sense of the world, absorbed a fundamental lesson: needing people is dangerous. Depending on someone means giving them the power to let you down. Connection equals eventual abandonment. Vulnerability gets weaponized. So your nervous system adapted. It built protective mechanisms before you even knew what you were protecting. You became independent not because you wanted to be, but because you had to be. Self-sufficient not as a choice, but as survival. You learned to need no one because needing someone meant getting hurt. You learned to expect nothing because expecting anything meant disappointment. You became the kid who didn't ask for rides, who figured things out alone, who stopped inviting friends over because "my family is complicated" was easier than explaining why home didn't feel safe. Those early relationships became your blueprint. They drew the map of what connection looks like, what love feels like, what you can expect when you let someone in. And every adult relationship that followed just confirmed the lesson. Eventually, you'll be alone. Eventually, you'll need someone and they won't show up. Eventually, the love will run out, or come with too many conditions, or disappear when you stop being easy. Your brain wired itself around this truth. Connection became dangerous. Trust became expensive. Vulnerability became a risk you couldn't afford to take anymore. So when you cut people off now, you're not being cruel. You're being consistent with everything your life has taught you about how relationships end. The accusations. The accusations sting anyway. You're too closed off. You don't let people in. You're afraid of intimacy. Like you haven't tried. Like you haven't spent years attempting to be different, to trust differently, to believe that maybe this time it would be different. Like you haven't forced yourself to be vulnerable again and again, hoping the outcome would change. It didn't change. The friend you opened up to about your depression suddenly got busy every time you reached out. The partner who said they wanted all of you disappeared when you showed them the parts that weren't easy. The family member who promised they'd be there went silent when being there required actual effort. Same pattern, different people, identical ending. You remember the specific moments, the text you sent at 2 a.m. when you were falling apart, read but never answered. The phone call you made, asking if they could talk, "Can I call you back?" And they never did. The crisis where you needed someone to just sit with you, and they said, "I'm sorry you're going through this," like you were a stranger, not someone they claimed to care about. You remember showing up to their emergencies, dropping everything, cancelling plans, driving across town at midnight because they needed you. Then when you needed them, suddenly everyone had reasons. Work is crazy right now. I'm going through my own stuff. I'm not good at this kind of thing. I don't know what to say. All valid statements that mean the same thing. You're on your own. So you stopped trying, not because you're broken, because you finally started listening to what your nervous system has been screaming at you for years. This costs too much. The price of connection, the vulnerability, the hope, the inevitable disappointment is higher than what you're getting in return. You're spending emotional currency you don't have on people who aren't even checking the balance. The math you wish you didn't have to do. You started doing math you wished you didn't have to do. How many times did you reach out first versus them? How many conversations centered their problems versus yours? How many times did you adjust your schedule, change your plans, sacrifice your needs, and how many times did they do the same? The data was devastating. You weren't in relationships, you were in performance contracts where you did all the performing. People don't understand why you choose isolation over connection. They don't see that for you. Isolation isn't the opposite of connection. It's the absence of rejection. It's the one space where you can't be abandoned because there's no one close enough to leave. It's not about hating people. It's about protecting the small part of yourself that's still capable of trust by refusing to spend it where it won't be honored. You became a detective of abandonment patterns. You can spot the signs now within the first few conversations. The friend who only texts when they need something, you see it in how they never ask how you're doing, just launch into their latest drama. The person who's present when life is good, but gone when it gets hard. You notice how they're always available for fun, but have 1,000 excuses when you're struggling. The relationships that feel like transactions, where you're always the one paying, you feel it in your bones. That familiar weight of keeping score you wish you didn't have to keep. You see it coming from miles away. The moment when their responses get shorter. When, "let's hang out soon," becomes a placeholder for never. When they start every text with an apology for not responding sooner. When you become the friend, they'll definitely call when things calm down, but things never calm down. You know the pattern of someone slowly exiting your life. It starts with longer gaps between texts, then the texts get more surface level. Then they stop responding to the real stuff. Then they stop responding at all. Then months pass. Then you're strangers who used to know each other's secrets. You've watched this pattern repeat with enough people that you stop being surprised by it. Now you just cut it short. At the first sign, the first cancelled plan, the first distracted conversation, the first time you feel yourself trying too hard, you pull back. Not dramatically, just quietly. Stop initiating, stop trying, see if they notice. They rarely do, and that tells you everything you need to know. What you gave up on. Some people say you've given up on people. They're wrong. You gave up on pretending that conditional acceptance is the same as being seen. You gave up on relationships where you have to shrink or perform or earn your place. You gave up on explaining yourself to people who were never trying to understand you. They were just waiting for you to admit you're the problem. You're not the problem. The problem is that for years you accepted crumbs and called it connection. You accepted being someone's last choice and told yourself, at least you made the list. You accepted love that came with fine print and convinced yourself that's just how it works. You normalized relationships where you did all the emotional labor, all the reaching out, all the caring, and told yourself it was enough that they answered sometimes, showed up occasionally, remembered you existed when it was convenient. Until one day, you couldn't anymore. Cutting everyone off isn't giving up on connection. It's refusing to settle for the hollow version you've been handed over and over again. It's saying, if this is what relationships are, this constant one-sidedness, this endless performing, this waiting for people who never show up, then I'd rather have none. People call you cold. You're not cold. You're just done bleeding for people who never even noticed you were wounded. You're done performing emotional labor for relationships that only work when you're the one doing the work. You're done being the one who cares more, tries harder, stays longer, forgives faster, gives more chances. They say you've built walls, you built boundaries. There's a difference. Walls keep everyone out indiscriminately. Boundaries keep the wrong people out and give the right people, if they ever show up, a chance to matter. But after enough years of only the wrong people showing up, the boundary starts to look like a wall. Maybe it is. Maybe that's what survival looks like after you've been burned enough times. The loneliest moment. The loneliest you ever felt wasn't when you cut everyone off. It was before. It was sitting in a room full of friends and feeling invisible. It was being in a relationship and still feeling fundamentally alone. It was needing help and watching people look the other way. It was the gap between what connection was supposed to feel like and what it actually felt like. Always giving, rarely receiving, constantly performing, never quite enough. The physical isolation didn't create the loneliness. It just stopped pretending the loneliness wasn't already there. You scroll through old photos sometimes, birthdays, group trips, nights out that looked like friendship from the outside. You don't miss those people. You miss the version of yourself who still believed those connections were real, who thought if you just tried harder, cared more, gave enough, they'd finally show up for you the way you showed up for them, who hadn't yet learned that some people will take everything you offer and still act like you never gave them anything at all. That version of you almost didn't make it. She gave until there was nothing left to give. He poured himself into people who took and never thought to fill him back up. They nearly drowned in the emptiness of relationships that only flowed one direction. You saved yourself by leaving. People see it as running away. You know it's running toward something, toward peace, toward the kind of quiet that doesn't come from loneliness, but from finally choosing yourself, toward a life where you're not constantly bracing for the next person to prove you're not worth staying for, toward mornings where you don't wake up wondering which friend is going to let you down today. Maybe one day you'll try again. Maybe you'll meet someone who makes connection feel safe instead of terrifying. Maybe you'll find people who show up without you having to beg them to see you. Maybe you'll learn that not everyone leaves. Not everyone takes. Not everyone uses your vulnerability against you. Maybe. But right now, you're protecting the part of yourself that still remembers what it felt like to hope. You're keeping that small flame alive by refusing to let anyone blow it out again, because the next disappointment might be the one that extinguishes it completely. And then you'd have nothing left, not even the possibility of trying again. Cutting everyone off isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of self-preservation. It's your nervous system finally saying, enough. Enough performing, enough pretending, enough accepting less than you deserve and calling it connection. Enough breaking yourself into smaller pieces so you'll fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You're not cold, you're not broken. You're not the villain in their stories, no matter what they say about you when you're not there to defend yourself. You're not the problem they made you believe you were every time a relationship failed and they pointed to all the ways you were too much or not enough. You're just someone who learned the hard way that being alone is less lonely than being unseen in a crowd. Someone who chose quiet over chaos. Someone who finally stopped waiting for people to show up and started showing up for yourself. And if this resonates with you, if you're realizing you're not alone in this experience, subscribe to Mindseed. Because understanding the psychology behind why you feel this way doesn't erase the pain, but it does give you permission to stop blaming yourself. You're not broken, you're protecting yourself. And sometimes that's the bravest thing you can do. The truth they don't see. They'll say you cut everyone off like it's a character flaw, like you're missing out, like you're running from something. Like if you just gave people more chances, tried harder, were more forgiving, were less sensitive, things would be different. Let them say it. You know the truth. You gave chances. You tried. You forgave more than most people would. You were sensitive because you actually paid attention, because you actually cared, because you actually showed up. You did everything they said you should do, and it still wasn't enough. The problem wasn't your effort. It was that you were giving it to people who never intended to match it. You're not running from anything. You're standing still, finally, in a space where no one can leave you because you're the only one there. Where your worth isn't determined by who stays or who goes. Where the silence isn't empty, it's full of the peace you never had when you were surrounded by people who never really saw you at all. This is the psychology of cutting everyone off. It's not about hating people. It's about loving yourself enough to stop accepting crumbs and calling it a feast. It's about recognizing that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't staying and trying harder, it's leaving and finally putting yourself first. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not closed off, you're protected. You're not giving up on connection, you're refusing to accept the broken version of it that's been offered to you over and over again. Maybe that makes you hard to understand. Maybe it makes you someone people whisper about. Someone they use as a cautionary tale about what happens when you build walls, when you stop trying, when you give up on people. But you know something they don't. Those walls are keeping you alive. That protection is what's allowing you to heal. That choice to walk away is what's finally giving you the space to become someone who might one day be ready to try again, but only on terms that honor who you are, not who people want you to be. For now, you're here, in the quiet, in the space you cleared by cutting away everything that was slowly killing you. It's not the ending people wanted for you, but it's the one that's keeping you whole. You're not cold, you're surviving. And maybe for the first time in your life, you're finally free.